Good morning, boys and girls. I am back to continue to read Behind the Bedroom Wall, written by Laura E. Williams. And today we are going to be looking at chapter 6, or I'll be reading chapter 6. And here it is. You be ready. Pay attention. Karina, you've never not wanted to go to school, Frau Rem frowning. Karina buried her face in her pillow. I don't feel well, she mumbled. You missed yesterday. You must go today, her mother insisted. Karina felt like screaming. Didn't her mother understand that she couldn't just go to school as if everything were normal? Rita would take one look at her and know she was hiding something. I don't feel well. Now Karina's mother began to sound angry. It will look suspicious if you suddenly start to miss school. You are not sick and you know it. Get out of bed now and you'll be late to meet Rita. Karina groaned. Now her mother turned away from the bed and left the room. Karina reluctantly flipped back her blankets and shivered in the cold air. She looked toward her wardrobe. Were the Krugmans up yet? Maybe they slept most of the day since there wasn't much they could possibly do back there. Quickly, she got dressed. Her kitten, still unnamed, darted between her legs and kept swinging at the hem of her skirt. Ouch! Karina exclaimed as the little rascal missed her skirt and dug a sharp claw into her leg. She bent down and picked up the kitten, hugging her close to her face. You silly thing, she said softly. The kitten began to purr as she stroked its fuzzy head. I'll play with you after school, she promised as she deposited her new pet on her bed and gathered her school books. Downstairs, she finished a hurried breakfast and then went to say goodbye to her mother, who stood by the stove, cooking. Karina did not look. Karina didn't look in the pots. She knew the food was for the Jews upstairs. Didn't they do anything but eat? She wondered, annoyed to find her mother working so hard for the enemy. It was a miracle she hadn't noticed all the extra cooking her mother had been doing lately, she thought. Frau Rem hugged her daughter. Have a good day at school, Karina. Karina hugged her mother back. I love you, mother. And she thought, but you're a traitor to the fatherland. I have to turn you in. Abruptly, she pulled out of her mother's arms. I'm late, she said, and left the house. Rita was waiting impatiently at the corner. Are you feeling better? She asked. Karina nodded. She didn't dare say anything for fear that the whole horrible story would spell out. Good, said Rita. Now we'd better hurry so we won't be late. Eva went on ahead. The two girls walked quickly down the sidewalk. It hadn't snowed in a couple of days, and the sidewalks were pretty clear of snow and ice. Guess what? Rita asked, excitedly charging her voice. What? Rita stopped walking and turned to her friend. The 4 year is coming. There's going to be a big parade, and our young model gets to march in it. Excitement fluttered through Karina's stomach. Here? She exclaimed. To our city? How wonderful! Rita nodded, a big smile spreading across her face. In 3 weeks, we're going to make a special banner, and Frau Lean Squanwald is going to write a new song for the occasion. Karina walked along silently. What's wrong? Rita asked, looking at her friend from the corner of her eyes. Nothing, Karina said quickly. I thought you'd be more excited about the news. I am excited, Karina said. It's just that there's a lot to do by then, she mumbled. Rita waved her hand. Oh, don't worry about that. We're going to meet every day until then just to get ready. Great, Karina said, relieved that they had reached the school building. I'll talk to you a break, Rita said as they entered their classroom. For a second, Karina was startled not to see Fraulein Meiser until she remembered that she had been taken to a work camp with her aging father. Karina shook her head. She couldn't understand how her teacher could have been done something like that. Not that the work camps were supposed to be all that bad, but still, to give up her job and her home, it didn't make her sense, or it didn't make sense to her. How are you feeling? Eva whispered as Karina sat down next to her. Better, thanks, she replied. Are you sure you're feeling okay? Karina turned to her with a frown. Yes, why? Eva shrugged. You look pale and tired. I haven't been sleeping well lately, Karina said truthfully. Maybe you should have stayed home another day, Eva suggested. Maybe, but my mother wouldn't let me. She smiled wanly. You know mothers. Eva smiled back. I know, I have one too. Not like mine, thought Karina. Mine is a traitor. She turned her attention back to the lesson, but she found it hard to concentrate. She couldn't help wondering what the Krugmans were doing. Finally, school was over. She met Rita and Eva in the usual spot to the right of the large front doors of the school building. Okay, let's go, Rita said cheerfully. You'll eat dinner at my house, and then we'll go to the meeting. I'm not going, Karina said. Both Rita and Eva stared at her with surprise. What do you mean you're not going? Rita demanded. Karina lifted a hand to her head. I still don't feel very well. It kind of came back during school. What is it? Rita asked. A cold? A headache? What? A little of both, Karina said evasively. I I haven't been sleeping well lately. Is it the mice? Rita asked. No, no, Karina said a bit forcefully. She'd forgotten that she'd told her friends about the noises. But why wouldn't she have? Friends shared everything from gossip about her cute neighbor, Alfred Bessel, to rustling mouse noises in the walls. My father had put out a trap to kill them. I haven't heard anything since. Eva made a face. I wouldn't want mice in my walls. It was nothing, Karina said hastily. They're gone now. That's good, Eva said. I'd hate to have something behind my bedroom wall making scary noises, especially little mice with their beady pink eyes and those awful rat tails. Rita nodded in agreement. Karina groaned inwardly. If only they knew the truth, she thought. Perhaps they'd think Jews were preferably to mice. Perhaps they'd think Jews were preferable to mice. After all, Jews didn't have beady pink eyes, they had dark, suspicious eyes. Rita nudged her. Karina, are you falling asleep on your feet? Karina nodded. I am really tired. I guess I should go home now. She was eager to get away from her friends' prying eyes and questions. Tomorrow you can tell me about the plans for the parade. Waving, she turned away and started home alone. 10 minutes later, she turned up the narrow path to her small red brick house with a green painted door and shutters. It was a pretty house, she decided, with window boxes full of flowers in the summer and icicles hanging from the roof in the winter. Entering the house, she called her mother, who answered from the front room. Karina was glad her mother didn't spend all her time with the Jews. It was bad enough to cook and cared for them. Karina's mother looked up. She held a dress in one and a needle and a thread in the other. How was school? Karina sat down beside her. Long, she said with a sigh. Yeah, I just want to show you the picture. That's Karina and her mom. She fingered the familiar material her mother was working on. What are you doing? Her mother held up the dress. Do you recognize it? Karina nodded. It was one of her dresses that she had long since grown out of. Why did you keep that? I kept most of your dresses to pass on to my grandchildren. Karina laughed. I don't think you have to mend any of my old dresses just yet. Her mother's face suddenly turned serious. This one isn't for any future granddaughter. This one is for Rachel. Rachel, Karina repeated stunned. The Jew? Rachel, the little girl upstairs, who only has one dress to her name, her mother corrected. But that's my dress, Karina protested. It doesn't fit you anymore. But it's mine, she insisted. Then take it. Frau Rim threw down the dress and stalked out of the room. Karina picked up the dress and held it against herself. Looking down, she had trouble remembering where she had gotten it. Then she remembered. Frau Rosen had made it for her fifth birthday. Frau Rosen, whom she called Auntie long ago, had disappeared. She remembered that day not too long ago that she had walked past the Rosen home, seen the front door wide open. That's when she had known they were gone. But where? She didn't know of. Of course, that was long after she had stopped talking to Frau Rosen anyway. She put down the dress and went upstairs. She could hear her mother banging pots and dishes in the kitchen. In her room, Corina put her book bag on the floor and called, "Here, kitty, kitty." There was no answering meow. "Here, kitty, kitty," she called again. Again, there was no reply. Or was there? Standing perfectly still, she thought she could hear a faint answering meow. It came from behind the shrink. Instantly, blind fury flooded her body. The Jews had her kitten. She yanked the wardrobe away from the wall, surprised at how easily and quietly it moved now that she knew what she was doing. Rachel stared up at her from the hole in the wall, cuddling a little bundle of black and white fur. Karina reached down and snatched her kitten from the little girl's thin arms. Rachel cried out. Two red scratches welled with blood where the kitten's claws had scraped on the child's forearms. "She is mine," Karina said coldly. Rachel looked up at her with wide eyes, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. "Come," Sophie said, pulling her daughter into her arms. The woman glared furiously up at Karina. "You have what's yours. Now leave us alone," she commanded. Karina scowled at her. What right did this Jewess have bossing her around? It was her room, her wall, and her kitten. These Jews had no rights. Didn't she know that? She furiously shoved the wardrobe closed with a loud bang. The kitten, startled by the sudden noise, scrambled out her hands and darted out of the room. "Karina, what's going on?" her mother demanded, practically tripping over the kitten on her way into the bedroom. The little Jewess had my kid. Her name is Rachel," her mother said angrily. "I heard her crying. Why is she crying?" The kitten scratched her. "Why?" Karina threw up her hands. "Why are you questioning me like this? She had my kitten. I took her back. Papa gave her to me. The kitten is mine." "Yes, I know," her mother replied, her voice tears with anger. "Just like the dress is yours, and this room is yours, and this country is yours. You have everything, Corina. Rachel has nothing. Is it so is it so terrible that she wants to play with your kitten? Well, is it?" she demanded when her daughter didn't respond. Corina stared at her mother. Salty tears stung her nose and made her eyes water. Her mother had never yelled at her like this before, and now, all because of a Jew, she had suddenly turned against her. "Shh!" After a tense moment of silence, "Hoki, stop!" The anger seemed to flow out of Karina's mother, and slowly she deflated. Her shoulders sagged as if her spine had lost its strength, and even her face seemed to droop. Finally, she just shook her head and left the room. Karina flung herself onto her bed. She would have been better off going to her meeting than coming home to this, she thought angrily. Something tickled her hand. Looking, she saw that her kitten had come back and was rubbing against her hand for attention. She sat up and hugged her kitten close. "So what do you do all day?" she asked her kitten softly. "Do you get lonely with no friends to play with?" She remembered as a child talking to her dolls in much the same way. She had always longed for a little sister, or even a brother, but instead she had grown up with only her dolls to keep her company. Now she had a kitten, but also but she also had friends in school and young model meetings to fill her time. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. Rachel has nothing. She stroked the kitten's head. Is the little Jewess fun to play with? Does she keep you company? She said aloud. It occurred to her that she hadn't been able to find her kitten the other day because Rachel probably had been playing with it. She tried to imagine what it must be like for the little girl living in a small room, never seeing the sunlight. There would be no toys or games for her to play with, and new friends or outings. She didn't even have any dresses to choose from. Nothing. The kitten started to wiggle, so Karina let go of it. He jumped off the bed and walked back and forth in the front of the right side of the wardrobe, purring. Not giving herself a chance to think, Karina got off the bed. She pulled open the right side of the skrank, just a few centimeters. With her foot, she tapped the kitten in the right direction. The kitten pounced through the gaping hole, and was swallowed up in the dim glow of candlelight. Karina slowly pushed the wardrobe back into place. That was nice, isn't it? That was nice. Now, do you notice any difference of her behavior now from the beginning of the chapter to the end of the chapter? If you're paying attention closely, I'm sure you've noticed a difference. So, tomorrow, boys and girls, I am going to continue to read chapter 7. But for now, enjoy the rest of the day, enjoy your lunch, and we'll continue tomorrow.